Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is January the 20th of 2021, and we're back to a regular episode of the show. Isn't it nice to be back to normal here on planet Earth on the podcast?
It's weird to have a Wednesday that started off like it didn't feel like the lead into the podcast was like a soul crushing thing. You know, it was
where we decided to talk about manga in order to escape the dark, clutching, cold hand of reality.
Yeah, no, we just we got something that was more like, all right, it was better than nothing, I guess, or better than what was before. So now Nick, I will notice you didn't refer to me by my title.
Sorry, Lord Christopher. Oh no, wait, Mr. Vito in the Bank.
Your Lord and your reigning, defending Vito in the Bank champion! I'm here to show the world, I'm here to show the world!
A big part of me is actually glad that I lost now, because that's way more impressive than the one I made.
I'm here. Well, it's mirrored because you're seeing it through a webcam, stupids. I didn't put them letters on backwards. Yes, so this looming threat shall be over you as soon as I guess not next week. It'll be 3 weeks after next week, because next week we're getting a new round of jump starts. But you never know, man. I've got this Vito in the Bank contract waiting at any moment.
I didn't actually hear that there were new series coming that early, but I guess it makes sense considering that 2 different series have ended this month after Chainsaw Man, and We Never Learned last month. So
well, Mori King, A Gravity Boys ended a little bit ago. Mori King just ended. Supposedly, Our Blood Oath is ending. There's at least rumors speculating right now that's supposed to be ending next week. And we're going to get 4 series, including one from the manga from Nero and Assassination Classroom is one. There's one from Astra Lost in Space mangaka, which I think is like a comedy about witches, I think, or something like that. And then 2 other people.
That makes sense. Because they also did, oh gosh, what's the name of the Sket Dance?
Sket Dance, yeah.
They also did that one, so. Okay, well, exciting. We will, I guess, get to those shortly enough. And if I have a visceral reaction to anything and you don't, I'm going to start getting worried. So, yeah.
Vito in the Bank. It's good times.
Yeah. If, guys, we did an irregular episode last week for those of you who didn't hear, where we had a Name That Character contest built on the fact that there are a lot of characters in My Hero Academia that Chris just doesn't know who they are, and there are a lot of One Piece characters that I just don't know who they are.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And so we challenged each other. We each came up with our own lists of characters from the series that we had stronger knowledge in to challenge the one who had a weaker knowledge in. And by 1 point, Chris beat me. Mm-hmm. And he basically beat me because superhero names in My Hero Academia are themed, and
I just picked the right fireman-based name.
Yeah.
Again, I have to thank the board game, the fireman-based board game I've been considering picking up for a while. That's also called Backdraft.
I guess I'm just lucky that Uwabami has a Japanese name and isn't named Medusa.
Yeah.
Because you would have gotten her too. But to move past my latest defeat, in which I demonstrated to everyone that I don't remember very plot relevant One Piece characters, like the guy who looked after Laboon.
Marcus, how dare you? He was a member of Gold Roger's crew.
I didn't recognize Brooks' captain. Sorry. But I got Margaret though.
Yeah, to my bewilderment still.
Yeah, it's the entire thing is up on Chris's Twitch.
Yep.
But I mean, because it's a very visual version, we're not. It's an irregular episode, so. Chris, I don't know if you've noticed lately, but it's been getting colder recently.
It has been a little bit nippy. I'm not a fan of it.
Well, I designed that in order to transition into the series we're talking about, and I can't figure out a smooth way to do it, which means it's the most failed segue.
Why did you say?
I don't know.
It's so cold.
Towards it being cold, and then I was like, "Wait, now that I'm here, what do I take a left? Do I take a right?"
You know what I like to do when it gets cold outside?
So we find it.
I read manga that is sometimes about the cold.
About winter, like this one.
That's why I read the Fairy Tail Grey spinoff manga. That's what we're talking about this week, guys.
Wait, what? Are you sure? We read Golden Kamuy this week. For this week. This is a series that started in 2013, 2014. It's been going on since then, running. It's won awards. It's won a fair number of awards, and it's available to read on Viz. You can read every single volume that is out in English right now, which is, I think, 18 volumes. It's almost 200 chapters. There's been more beyond that, but you can read everything up to that point if you have a Shonen Jump subscription. There's also a series that I did a review of for Anime News Network a few years back when the first volume came out, and I loved that first volume, but I basically just kind of forgot about it, or I just never kind of got around to it for a while. And then earlier this year, I decided to, not earlier this year, but last year, I started to catch up on the anime series that was out. And then Chris said, "Hey, why don't we read this manga?" And I was like, "Yay, I like that anime." So I liked the first volume of the manga. So here we are now. My opinion has not really changed on it. Some of the intricacies, like there are certain things that I didn't get an impression of that just from the first volume that became much more obvious later on, like the manga's incredible preoccupation with dicks. But for the most part, my opinion has not changed on this series. I quite enjoy it. What do you think, Chris?
I generally enjoy it. I think I've gone on record before saying I really, really like survival fiction stories, and I don't know if I'd say this is exactly survival fiction, but everything's so generally kind of grounded that it falls into a similar vein. But I will say there is still a not a criticism. I think it's just a joke that tends to get lobbied around the manga that absolutely makes sense, is that every chapter feels like you were reading a Wikipedia article that you did not want to click on, that you're just like, all right, shit, I guess I'm going to find out about this bark and every fucking intricacy about this fucking bark. And every chapter has something like that.
There's a fair amount of narration that happens, especially early on when Sugimoto's a little bit more on his own than he becomes very shortly afterward. And so information about the world that they're in is just kind of like, here it is. It's just given to you. Like this, it gets cold, so cold that the trees crack. And it's like, all right, God, thank you for telling me that.
But it oftentimes also comes from one of the characters. It's very much like those food war expo dumps where it's just like, not even expo dump, just explanation of, hey, here's how this intricate food chemistry reaction thing goes. And in this case, a lot of it actually is food as well, because it'll be like, hey, here's what happens to fucking otter eyeballs when you fucking douse them in oil and then you cook them to a certain temperature. You can also eat them and then also take the skin afterwards and rub it across all your hands. And like, it's just, it's very intricate. But it does at points feel like you were reading the textbook.
A little bit. Something that I did not expect, even after I had read the first volume, but kept on coming up and coming up and coming up. Holy shit. This might as well be a cooking manga.
Yeah.
Like, there is a lot more to it than the food, but there is so much food in this series. So much food that is apparently very tasty that I have never eaten before. Because they eat brains and like exotic animals and stuff. Because they're out in the wilderness for the most part, and they have to just eat what they find, and they do.
Yeah.
And everything is Hina. That's I've learned. So I guess we should actually talk about what the actual.
What's the
plot is.
concept, Nick? What is this series?
Golden Kamuy is set in Japan in Hokkaido, the northern most island of Japan. In the very early 20th century, it is just after the Russo-Japanese War, but presumably before World War One. So somewhere probably around 1908 to 10 or something along those lines. And so we follow this veteran of the Russo-Japanese War named Sugimoto, who is basically developed a reputation on the battlefield for being impossible to kill. He's got all these battle wounds and stuff like that from the fights that he survived. And by happenstance, he just stumbles into this massive plot to hunt down a hoard of gold that belongs to the indigenous group in the area called the Ainu. And apparently someone stole the gold from the Ainu. The person who stole the gold was arrested and put in prison, and they wrote a code for how to find all the gold across the bodies of like 25 prisoners. And so a bunch of the prisoners have now escaped and are scattered all across Hokkaido and the surrounding areas. And so in order to find this gold, you have to track them down and either skin or copy the code onto tarp. And then somehow, once it's all laid out, you can figure out where the gold is. And Sugimoto gets involved with this young Ainu girl named Asirpa. She's like 12 or something like that. And they agree to look for the gold together. And things just kind of go from there. There are a whole bunch of other characters, but that's the basic premise. There's like a whole thing involving different factions and their plans for all of Japan. And there's a whole lot of weird people with various different mental issues, honestly. But it's about them trying to survive in this very harsh winter environment while they're trying to track down the different prisoners with the code on their bodies and survive in the meantime. And they eat a lot of food. And it's all apparently very delicious.
Yeah, it's an interesting series. I honestly, one of the biggest like comparisons I feel like I can make is somewhat to World Trigger, and not necessarily that their plots are anywhere near identical, but that the way they handle themselves is so very uniquely theirs. I don't know much about the manga, but there is a style that's very obvious in that everything is going to have its time to be kind of digested and explained. Character designs, oftentimes, they don't really need to make sense. Dudes will be very hunky. I don't think there is a dude in the series who isn't like super jacked and ripped. And you'll see a lot of, half nude characters and things like that. Hey, you know what? I'm happy for it. And there is just a distinct style to it. It's also a funny series. It's kind of odd. Like Sugimoto, you kind of get the start is almost like a Wolverine kind of character, like this badass loner. And then you're like, oh, he has to help this little kid until it's immediately clear she's the one who's actually taking care of him because she knows this like entire area. And then he basically has to become the straight man to her because she's the one who gets all the wacky reactions or says all the wacky things. And he has to just, like, it'll be a line where she's just like, oh, but we can't eat the otter's brain because it got poison. And he just has to sit there and he's like, oh no, we can't eat it. Oh, like staring off to the side or something like that.
Whenever food is potentially brought up, like if anything non-human comes across their path, a Sirpo will be like, I want to eat it.
Oh yeah.
Every time.
Everything's all about that. And I do appreciate that. I enjoy the comedy of it. I enjoy their relationship. I enjoy the power dynamic because again, it's clear very early on that he's the one who kind of needs her more than anything else. Like a pretty significantly early on arc is him being like, it's too dangerous to continue this mission with her along. I'm going to leave on my own. And he like immediately gets captured and almost killed. And she has to go rescue him.
She has to save his ass. Yeah.
So it's a very nice change of pace relationship. I can't speak. I'm a very, unfortunately, ignorant person to a lot of it. So I can't, and I don't want to speak to how accurate this, exploration of this culture is. From the little I saw, it seems like it was done well, but I will fully admit on the front, I don't know that for certain, and I had very little knowledge of who this group was. I want to call them the Anbu. Isn't that the fucking? That's the fucking ninjas from Naruto. Yeah.
Ninjas.
Yeah.
It's the Ainu.
Yeah.
Which is a real indigenous group in Japan. Apparently, the mangaka of the series, Satoru Noda, has done a lot of work with them. And I mean, like, I had never heard of this group until I read this manga. But yeah, apparently Noda Sensei does a lot of work making sure that, you know, the manga is well researched. Apparently, he's not concerned with everything being super historically accurate. So, like, for example, there are certain guns that show up in the series that were not available in Japan at the time or potentially even existed. But, you know, it's more fun to just have certain things in. But apparently, yes, the indigenous group is very well represented in the series.
Okay.
So.
And that was my... that was what I kind of was inclined to believe. But again, I don't know. I like you. I didn't know this was even like a group until we read the manga. So, you know, I didn't want to be like, and what a great representation, you know, because I don't know. I mean, as far as I know, he could have been making the whole thing up, as you know. So I do appreciate it. I really do find all the work, even if I don't necessarily enjoy it in the context of a story, I find it all so very admirable. And I think that's kind of even more to what I was saying when I compared this to World Trigger. Sort of like how we praise Ashihara for having a chapter where it's like, hey, it's just going to be the fucking draft. You know, I do a chapter once a month and I did half a draft this month. So like, it's just very much their style. And you can get a chapter in Golden Kamuy where you're just like, shit, I guess we're really going to find out about how they make pottery this week. That's just going to be the chapter.
So this is an adventure series too. So yes, you're correct, completely correct. There will be times when they'll just kill and skin a deer and eat it, and that'll be a chapter. But there will also be times when all the fighting happens. And when all the fighting happens, it is incredibly violent and incredibly amazing.
Yeah, there are truly a lot of great moments. There's a lot of really clever thinking, and it's really good when there's like a big moment of victory for the characters, like you know, managing to trick somebody into basically poking the bear that you were right on the edge of poking. You're just like, I'm gonna keep my finger right here, and I'm gonna hope you poke it first, kind of move. You know, that sort of stuff. It is really good. I do enjoy it, but I will note that it is also a very distinct style. So if somebody came up to me afterwards and said, I hated this series, I would go, I do not blame you. I absolutely can understand that.
I mean, like, there are certain elements of it that make it just unique in terms of at the very least, you don't see a lot of series like this right now that are like shonen series.
Yes.
Um, and part of that has to do with the fact that there's a lot of guys in this story, and all of them feel very adult male. And that's a very deliberate choice on Noda's part. I actually like looked up stuff about them. Apparently, like nobody knows a whole lot about him, but he has made it very clear that he doesn't like Bishonen stuff. So that's why he doesn't have any, like thin pretty boys or anything. Everyone in this series is muscly and gets their ass out. Like, and there was this really, I thought this was fake the first time I saw it, but I saw this thing like just after we started reading this series to prepare for it. That was an interview between Satoru Noda and the mangaka of Vinland Saga. They were interviewed together, and one of the questions in the interview was, "Do you see any similarities between your two series?" And so Yukimura, the Vinland Saga mangaka, was like, well, like they're both very violent. They're both set in cold regions. I don't know. And the note is just like, the old men are cool. They have sex appeal. Give me more hairy but rough and cool old men. It was like, all right, I can definitely appreciate. It's like, you like what you like. Good for you, man.
Yeah, you know what? I gotta enjoy it. Plus, it's such a like. It's a very uncommon thing, it feels like,
Absolutely.
for that thing to kind of show up. And I like that it is definitely catching on. Like I've been seeing mobile games that are doing like golden Kamuy crossovers and collaborations. And you're just like, good. I'm glad to see that there's like crossovers for this sort of series,
Yeah. I watched this anime with Nicole. I mean, as far as I know, she's not super into all the man ass that shows up in the series, but at least, it's not a bunch of like underage kids that get their butts out like in the majority of shonen animes. The older we get, the less okay we are with it. So but it's a very fun series. It's at times just very comfortable because everyone will just be sitting around gathered in a warm little hut as they shelter against the elements, and at times it'll be very disturbing because this is a manga that has a lot of characters who have already seen a lot of death in it or have already committed a lot of murder in it. There's like a sniper character called God, I forget so many names in this series, but I think his name is Ogawa. And he is just a sociopath, like just straight up. But he's also very interesting. It's very interesting to see the way that he sees the world when he talks about how, like he was born out of wedlock, and so his father abandoned his mother. So he basically killed his mom to see if his dad would show up at her funeral. Like he's so messed up. Sugimoto has clearly a lot of stuff haunting him because he's been through war and his best friend died in the war, and he's trying to look after his best friend's fiance, and he's haunted by all of that. And meanwhile, Asirpa is this young girl who is pretty much mostly innocent, but is suddenly going through a lot of the horrible things that these characters are going through. And then you'll have a character like Shiraishi, and he'll get a charm that he thinks will protect him that's shaped like a dick, and then when he starts falling through the ice into the water, he'll try and use it to hold himself up, and then the head will break off of the dick charm. Like,
yeah, it all works though,
Yes.
Like it weirdly all kind of comes together, and I think I've kind of worked out how I feel, and that I like it, and I would recommend it to just about anybody. Even I would recommend this to somebody who doesn't read manga. Like if this was their first sort of series, if you know somebody who's like, I like reading like old war / like old guy in the wilderness sort of stories or things like that, I'd be like, you'd probably like this. There's going to be a lot of penis, but there's you're gonna enjoy this. I think you'll enjoy the characters and things like that, and I think it would be a good introduction in that way. But at the same time, again, if someone told me they were like, "Well, I read a volume at night, I fucking hated it," I'd be like, "Hey, no, fair enough," you know?
I get what you mean. Even if it came, not even just like the story content, but literally, even if someone said, "I can't read this anymore," everyone's eyes look too weird. I'd be like, "All right,
Yeah.
I understand you." It's an interesting series. It's a different sort of series than the stuff that we read normally on this show, and I really really enjoyed it. And I'm probably going to pull myself just keep watching the anime, especially if it's releasing at a rate that is roughly at the same pace as the manga coming out. So looking forward to more.
All right. Let's talk about like the 15 series we have this week, Nick.
Yeah, we've got a lot of chapters to catch up on because some of the regular stuff came out last week that we didn't talk about. So let's get into it. So, My Hero Academia, chapter number 297, Tartarus. There is a very long explanation about what Tartarus is at the beginning of this chapter that was very hard to read and was very long, and so I have skipped it every single time I've opened up this chapter. Just too lazy.
Yeah. I will note I was able to read it, and I enjoy that, you know, it's there's currently this big One Piece celebration currently going on. One Piece reached chapter 1000, and there's something like with Dr. Stone did a cover page connected to it. I really appreciated that Horikoshi just put Impel Down into fucking My Hero. I think that was a really cool move. It's weird he changed the name. He should have just called it Impel Down if it's 100% just Impel Down, but you know, whatever.
If he can just like write in there where it says Counter Quirk Maximum Security Special Prison, aka Tartarus, aka Impel Down. It's just really small print.
I was gonna say they both have vaguely Nazi guardsmen, so I mean it's right down to the wire pretty much.
The chapter is about, you know, the plan that All for One was alluding to at the end of the last chapter of the series, where he was going to get his real body out of there, and we see that plan in process. There's a bit of honestly, it made me think of the weird Zion fight in the last Matrix movie, where everyone was in the mechs with machine guns. Because there's like these huge mech things or turrets or whatever that are firing at unseen enemies. I'm guessing the high-end Nomu. I don't know. Also, someone died. Oh no, not Crust. I mean, not Briaria. Get a normal name that I can actually pronounce. You deserve to die. Shigaraki, or rather All for One, using Shigaraki's body is there in person. He didn't just send the Nomu after in order to get his body out. We see some conversation going on between, yes, vaguely Nazi-ish wardens, who he really, really, really doesn't like abnormal people. Like, it's not even just like, oh, they don't deserve to have human rights because they did horrible things. He's like, no, these are like non-human now because of how mutated their quirks make them. It's like, oh, that's a great thing for someone to say in a society that is mostly mutated. We flash around the prison to see some of the important people that are there. It occurred to me while this was going on, like, oh, are they going to reintroduce Stain into the story this way? I think that one of the figures in this montage might be him, the guy slumped in the corner.
On the bottom right.
Yeah, so that might be him, but during the break later, we don't see him, I don't think. Emergencies are going on. High-end Nomus are flying around the place. Shigaraki is directing them around. Shigaraki is actually starting to rebel under All for One's control. And All for One's like, no, go back to sleep. The hyper regeneration is not working, so I need you to be healthy. And he starts arguing literally with himself in a way that's kind of weird because the panels just split down the middle to signify that he's talking to himself, and that's about it. It's kind of odd framing, but anyway. And All for One kind of chides Shigaraki for objecting to being taken control of by saying like, hey, you know, you agreed to this by taking my power. You know, you tried to rebel against the world. You wanted the strength to make good on all the hatred you felt. This is the result of what you were doing. and that's what matters now. So Shigaraki objects, saying, "I'm not going to be your pawn," and All for One says, "You're not my pawn. You're very near and dear to me. After all, you're the next me." I don't know. That sounds like you said the same thing that he said. But he starts using the decay ability, and the guard tower just goes away. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Shigaraki is kind of recapping the situation as is, how even with all the power that's been packed into Shigaraki's body, he doesn't have the strength to actually break into the prison on his own. But fortunately, he can coordinate stuff with the people who are actually in the prison, and that makes things easier. So he uses one of his quirks, I think, to just open up a bunch of locks and let out a bunch of prisoners. The suppression squad start to come out and start to fire at some of the villains, and it doesn't work. They get taken out immediately by some of the villains, including Muscular and Moonfish. I thought about putting Moonfish in the quiz last week for you, Chris.
I think when I guessed Mustard, the first guess I gave for his name was something like Skin Ripper or something like that, and I think what I was thinking of was Moonfish, because I was like, there was a dude who had like a stupid name that didn't really connect, and I don't know, maybe Moonfish is a fucking, I don't know, toothpaste thing, I don't know, but it didn't connect in my mind. So yeah, seeing him, what a beloved return of these characters.
Yeah, Muscular, I was kind of like, oh, okay, Musco's back in the series now, and then Moonfish came out, and I was like, I mean, all right, I guess.
But Nick, what about the big character this week?
You mean the multi-hair-colored woman who I don't recognize?
Yes, who is apparently a new character, but everyone is already shipping with everybody. Everybody's like, this is the character I care about the most.
I mean, she's the attractive girl, so of course, it's my hero. And then she lets out a guy who's kind of scruffy looking, and he says, "Boss." And that's it.
That's Overhaul, isn't it? That's
why
why
was dead.
I think we thought it was ambiguous, and it seemed like he was dead. But his sleeves,
his arms are going over his sleeves are going over his arms.
Yeah, I think his sleeves are gone. So,
I guess it could be him.
I think that's who it's supposed to be, and that's why when the door opens, their thing is like, I have to go to the boss, my Yakuza boss guy.
All right. Anyway, Muscular looks up and recognizes Shigaraki, and Shigaraki is staring at All for One, and who is now just free. It's cool. He's got what looks like the warden hanging from one hand, and he says, "This impending void era will give rise to a more perfect demon lord. This will be the story of how I become the greatest demon lord of all." You fucking dork, calling yourself a demon lord, you little asshole.
Sure. Somebody said, and I just didn't notice it, I guess back when there was like a conversation between All for One and One for All, One for All had kind of mentioned, like, don't you get it? Like, you stop reading the story in the last like 5 pages. The demon lord loses to the mighty hero in every story, and I guess he's just never read those last 15 pages. He's just like, I'm gonna be the coolest demon lord, and I'm gonna reap and never sow.
Yeah. So honestly, like, it's weird because this sort of makes out that All for One might actually not be nearly as mature a villain over Shigaraki as he is given the impression of for the past, what chapter are we on? 297 chapters. He's always tried to be like, I am the wise master who will mold you. And then he's just like, no, he's also just this little asshole on some massive power fantasy. So
yeah, I do love how he just took the entire life support machine and it's just like floating behind him. He's like, I still need this. Nobody fuck with this.
I will die without it. Don't you get any ideas, Shigaraki? I do appreciate that this all took place in one chapter, and we're just like, okay, go move on. Like, we are getting to whatever time skip or whatever is ahead, and we're not going to spend a month or whatever on this prison break. So
I'm more curious on your thoughts, because I don't like, as a casual kind of My Hero fan, all of these characters showing back up and everything like that was very much a I vaguely remember you. Like, there's no fanfare. So I was curious if it was more exciting for you to see some of these characters come back and the prospect of some of it.
In terms of the characters that get a spotlight that are returning, honestly, the only one that really makes a blip is Muscular, because like, okay, well, there's that character that was kind of important for a little bit, and they're back. That's fine. I have no interest whatsoever in Overhaul because his arc was terrible. And beyond that, I mean, if Stain had showed up and actually gotten a bit of a highlight, I'd be like, oh, cool, Stain. Because that guy was important enough that he influenced some other people, and it would be interesting to see how him escaping because of All for One, and if what actions he would take from there. And so I guess, honestly, the character that I am most intrigued by is actually the multi-haired girl, because I have no idea who she is, and I kind of want to find out. So that's basically it. This is a bit of the villain gang getting back together, and none of the ones that are returning that got any focus really intrigue me all that much.
All right, there we go. It's an okay chapter.
Now, if Mustard were there with his gun. All right. Also, Kurogiri was one of the ones that showed up in the montage, obviously. So.
Yeah, they didn't really show him a lot, and I assume he's like one of the people they're definitely getting out of there because he's like super important to their group and still definitely loyal, I think. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Boruto.
Oh, right, Boruto before Eden Zero. Okay.
Boruto Kaiju number 8 in Spy Family before Eden Zero.
Number 54. Bro. So.
Come on, bro.
Fuck,
this chapter's so much lamer now that I know. Remember the chapter title was Bro.
So, Boruto has been taken over by Momoshiki? Yes, that's the one. That's the name of the one that's taking over his consciousness. So this is a bad thing. And because obviously everyone's still exhausted from the fight with Ishiki. So Kawaki is fighting Boruto throughout this chapter while also remembering how, they became buddies over the course of the, several chapters prior to all of this happening. I think that this process actually started a year and a half ago because monthly chapters are weird to keep up with. He also, when Momoshiki says like, he makes a crack like, your freedom is fleeting. He says, shut up, white eye, which sounds racist, but I'm not sure if it is. I know it's because of the Byakugan or whatever, but it sounds weird. They fight for a bit. And eventually, Boruto just stabs Kawaki in the back. And so Sasuke kicks him. And then... Okay, so one of the things I observed about this chapter, and it's one of the major reasons why I didn't care for it all that much, but I'm not super upset about it or anything. They do the pronoun thing a lot in this chapter. They do it like 4 times. I guess I'll have to use that. It's a good thing I did that. Oh, it's him. They do that like 3 or 4 times. And it's really annoying because it's not something that remains hidden past the end of the chapter. It's, I'll have to do that. Flip. Oh, that was this.
Yeah.
Like that. I'll allude to the thing I'll just reveal in 2 pages. Like it's dumb and annoying. Boruto basically says that sorry. When I read this page, it made me go, yep, Kishimoto is rewriting this series again. So he says to Kawaki, the extraction progressed quite far, which means it should work. And then Kawaki's like, what do you mean by that? And Boruto says, even if karma itself has vanished, the Otsutsuki data that was extracted still remains in your body.
What? I know what they're trying to say, that he's enough Otsutsuki at this point to be the sacrifice that's apparently needed, but it was a way like 80% complete of your dad. Like, it's just a very like, why would you say it like that?
The progress bar got almost all the way filled up, so it's bad. You know, I mean, the installation didn't complete, but there's a lot of temp files that are in use. So Sasuke is like, oh, he's planning to sacrifice Kawaki the exact same way that Ishiki was planning to sacrifice Boruto. Oh no. And so, yeah, Momoshiki in Boruto is like, I'll feed you to the 10 tails that Ishiki hid away and feed you and claim its fruit. Because remember, that was the entire plot of the Otsutsukis that was introduced in this series. Good lord. Naruto's tired. He lies down.
I'm just gonna take a nap.
Kawaki and Boruto fight some more. Sasuke tries to fight Boruto with his sword, and then he unleashes like a Chidori or something through his sword, and it just zaps Boruto and knocks him away. And Sasuke's like, that's weird. He could have just absorbed the jutsu with karma. Why didn't he? Momoshiki is like, are you really going to kill your favorite student? And Sasuke is like, hey, remember that conversation I had with you like 3 chapters ago where I said I would kill you? Yes, I will. So, cool. He keeps on trying to nail Momoshiki, and eventually, like, the fight kind of breaks up a little bit, and Sasuke gets Kawaki's attention, while Kawaki is like, something's wrong with the Hokage. He's, like, napping or something. And Sasuke says, hey, I've got an idea. I think that he's not using karma, because that means he has to absorb jutsu, which means that he absorbs chakra. And I think that the reason that he woke up is because Boruto exhausted all of his chakra. So therefore, he's trying to prevent Boruto from waking up and regaining control of his body. Momoshiki goes, it's time that I use that. And then on the next page, he uses the Vanishing Rasengan, which was that. Cool. It knocks Sasuke to the ground. Kawaki gets knocked around a bit. He remembers how he and Boruto are buddies now. He sets himself on fire. And since Momoshiki needs him to sacrifice, he's like, oh, I can't let this happen. And so he absorbs the fire jutsu, which causes Boruto to start waking up. He tries to resist this. He tries to use space-time jutsu to whisk Kawaki away, but Boruto takes enough control for him to rip the horn off of his head, and that frees him from possession, I guess. Karma fades, and they all collapse, and they're like, hey, we made it, hooray. And he and Kawaki kind of insult and congratulate each other at the same time. Sasuke goes over to Naruto and is like, what the? No way. And Naruto's face is dirty, so I guess that's what he was reacting to. That Naruto's face got dirty because this panel does not make it immediately obvious what has happened with Naruto. Is he dead? Is he in a coma? I don't know. Sasuke's upset about the way he looks.
Yeah, he just says, what the? No way. So maybe he's dead. I think the far more likely thing is maybe he's like in a coma or something, or some kind of like unconscious state.
Probably.
Who knows? I actually kind of like this chapter. I thought it was actually a pretty cool moment for Kawaki to figure it all out and basically, sort of like his plan the other week or the other month where he was like, look, I'm basically kind of going to put the onus on you because you need me at this point to complete your plan. I'm going to set myself on fire. So you got to absorb that fire or else your entire plan falls apart. And absorbing that fire is just enough chakra to give Boruto his chance to fight back. And I do appreciate the friendship between them. This is a payoff to like these two kind of having like a somewhat tempestuous relationship. It just is very dorky with the whole bro stuff. Like, Boruto and Browaki are gonna bro it out together and fist bump because they're bros. It's just like, I don't know. We could have maybe just made it a little less dorky is all I was kind of hoping. But generally, I actually liked it. I thought it was a cool moment for Kawaki, and I appreciated that. But yeah, there's also a lot of very frustrating parts of the chapter too. It's like a really good last like 6 pages, basically.
All right, so we on to Kaiju number 8, chapter 22. So it's I believe that. Wait, did I open up the wrong one? Hang on, let me make sure. No, this is the right one. Okay, good. Sorry. Ichikawa wakes up in the hospital. Kafka and Hibino are there to greet him as he wakes up. Immediately, Ichikawa is like, "Oh, you're safe." It's like, dude, you have holes in your body. But after Kafka's like, "Oh, come on, you idiot! What are you talking about?" He says, "Oh, hey, thank you for saving me, and also Iharu." And then it turns out Iharu's in the same hospital room with them, and so they have to be like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" I don't know. And so Iharu's like, "I thought the Kaiju number 8 saved us." And to me, Kikaru's got to be like, "Oh, he meant thank you for realizing where the Yoju's reproductive organs were."
Yeah.
So, Iharu is like, it's kind of weird to say this about Kaiju number 8, but it was actually really cool. The way that it just knocked number 9's head off of its shoulders. It was pretty awesome. And then he's like, "Yeah, I wish the two of you could have seen it." And Kafka's like acting all embarrassed and flattered. And so Kikoru like punches him in the kidney. He's like, you're so fucking obvious. So she goes out to report to the rest of the crew that the two of them are going to be released today, and they hold a welcome back party once everyone gets back to headquarters. And also, it's kind of a way to celebrate their wrap for their first mission together. So it's a nice celebration that they have. And then it turns out that it's a much bigger celebration than Kafka was expecting, because the guy who was in charge of organizing it, named Haruichi, is very rich, because like his dad basically designed all the equipment that they use to fight the kaijus. He's the scion of Izumo Tech. So this guy's being bigged up a little bit, along with, we're gradually getting to learn the rest of Kafka's unit as we go along in this series. Eventually, people start arguing as they eat and drink together. Ichikawa is kind of on the sidelines observing everything, along with Hoshina, who kind of gets this smirk on his face like right before it starts, because like the real fun is going to start now. Iharu starts fighting with Kikoru. Kafka gets drunk really fast and starts talking about how Izumo's suits don't work for him, basically, which kind of, exposed himself. But as everyone starts arguing, and Ichikawa is really worried at first, they actually start going over the mission with each other, and they're kind of pointing out how they could all improve by being mad at each other. And so Ichikawa realized, like, oh, this will let us see where we're lacking, and so we can all work together to get stronger. Cool. But eventually people are getting rowdier and rowdier, and Ichikawa's like, "Guys, this is way too much. Do you guys know?" And Hoshina's like, No, it's fine. Because he's a great boss, I guess.
Yeah, he's just like, let us have fun.
Yeah. Eventually he says, "Oh, wait, guys, settle down. I have an announcement to make." And he calls over to Kafka, and he says, "Your findings during the operation have gone on record for substantially mitigating potential damage. So you're getting promoted to General Officer. We informally made the decision today. We'll formally set you up at a later date, but once again, welcome to the Defense Force 3rd Division, Officer." And that's where we end the chapters. Kafka and Ichikawa look at each other, and he's like, "Yeah!" And hey, Kafka is now a full officer, so he's achieved his goal. Hooray.
Yeah, this is not like a super thrilling chapter, but it's a cute chapter. It's fine. We get a little bit of like, presumably this is somewhat of like an informal introduction to Izumo. Haruichi. So, presumably that's what that is ultimately meant to accomplish. And then, Kafka gets promoted. So, okay, now he doesn't have the big worry about being a cadet anymore. He doesn't have that timetable on him. So, there's some decent stuff in there, but for the most part, it's basically just like, hey, let's see these characters kind of hang out for a little bit, but we don't even get that much of them actually hanging out. But still good.
Yeah. It was it was a nice little chapter. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Spy Family. This is like our first Damien chapter. Like, it's all Damien. Like, Anya's barely in it at all, because there's some trip that's going on that Damien basically is just missing out on, and because he misses morning muster, and so he has to help out around the dorm to do the chores. There's a cute little moment where his hangers-on deliberately break the rules so that Hofferson will send them to do chores with Damien so that they can hang out together and suffer through the punishment together. And it's kind of nice because like he clearly like has seen through this, but he's like, this is very nice, that they're all young friends and stuff. And so eventually he decides that they need a different punishment. And so he sends the three of them on a field research trip with Mr. Green in the conservatory with the rough and tumble sort of guy. He's got an eye patch on, and he takes them on an outdoor trip. They go canoeing. Everyone falls in the water, and they're like, "We're gonna drown!" And he's like, "Guys, you can stand up." And so the crazy 6-year-olds stand up. They build a fire together. They catch worms from the dirt in order to put them on fishing lines so that they can catch fish, and they eat fish together and stuff. And Mr. Green talks to the kids about, like, hey, this is, very valuable to you guys because sometimes it's good to shut your brain off for a bit. It really helps out this with studying according to neuroscience. It allows letting yourself space out is good for your cognizance, basically. And Damien responds to this by psyching himself up to turn his brain off, which of course defeats the purpose, but and he talks to everyone about, hey, you guys maybe want to think about what you want to do when you grow up, because there's all these infinite possibilities and stuff. And so like there's a nice little thing because he talks to his other friends and he's like, it's wonderful that you guys have a goal. Damien, of course, is, trying to follow down his father's path. One of his friends says he wants to become a cosmonaut. His other friend's like, I mean, I don't know what I want to do. And Mr. Green's like, you don't? Well, that's fine too. So, and so the guy's like, I want to be able to eat a lot of candy. All right, that's fine. Go dream about that. Cool. Yeah. And, night falls. They look up at the stars while they're out over this open lake and stuff. And, Mr. Green is like, hey, check it out. You can look at the reflection of the stars. It's like you could reach in and grab the stars out of the water. And Damien's like, hey, it's not like, what are you wasting my time for? I mean, fine, I guess it's pretty, So they all kind of, lay back and they just kind of relax together and they just look out over the stars and stuff. And Damien's finally able to actually relax to the point where one of his friends says something like the stars look like sugar sprinkled in the sky, and he starts like, ooh, yummy, and Damien laughs. And they're like, oh, he actually laughed. He was actually able to relax that much. Eventually, they all get back to the dorms, and Mr. Green goes to Henderson and says that he's got reports from people, and there's like some very hastily scrawled stuff. Like there's a little note from Damien that just says, we saw a lot and did a bunch of stuff. It was fun. That's it. But mission accomplished.
Looks like we've lost Nick for a moment.
So I'm here. I'm here.
All right.
Come on.
We had an internet hiccup there. Now I can hear you now. All right. I think you were just basically wrapping up the chapter and all that.
Wrapping up.
Yeah. This is a fun chapter. It's it's good to get a little bit more about Crab and Goyle. I always appreciate it. They are not interesting enough individually that I would bother to remember which one is which. But I do like that they have a sweet childlike innocence of real friendship with Damien. I appreciate that. These aren't two guys who are hangers on because they like to bully other people or they're just mean. They actually seem to genuinely like Damien, and they're still kids. So I like it. It felt okay for me to root for them in this chapter, basically, where Damien's had character growth and like things revealed. To this point, those two kids were just assholes who hung out with them. But it was nice to see in this chapter there's more to them than that. And it was a very cute thing. Like, they both intentionally get themselves in trouble, so they have to go to detention so they can hang out with it. It's always very cute. So I like the chapter.
Yeah, it was a very nice little thing. And I mean, it's not a big thing where it's like you point to any one element and you go like, oh, this was really cool. It's just more like it's nice to have this very humanizing little chapter, this little story that lets you know, hey, these three kids were kind of little shiz to Anya, but they're 6-year-old kids. So.
Yeah. All right, Nick, let's move on to Eden Zero. We got a double helping of chapters to talk about this week. So we're going to start. We're going to start with chapter 125, The Heart of Gravity. We have a cover page. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Rebecca is clearly trying to be dressed like a sexy gangster, but no one else is wearing gangster clothes, so I don't know why she is.
Happy looks like he's like some sort of a showman, and like that, and Shiki started to dress himself and then decided that it was cold, and so he was just going to wear a robe over the rest of it. So,
yeah, I don't quite get it. It's also a shame. I feel like there are cooler ways to do the gangster outfit than to have to, do a push-up bra and stocking and girdle kind of thing. So, or garters, whatever the fuck it's called.
Garters.
A good pinstripe suit looks attractive on anybody, Nick. Except hippopotamuses. They could devour you in one bite. They're fast on land and in water.
Wait. So a pinstripe suit doesn't look good on a hippopotamus because they will murder you?
They're so dangerous. Look, I guess technically, yes, the pinstripe suit still looks good on the hippopotamus, but it's going to kill you, so you really can't even appreciate it. So in that way, it doesn't look good, because you didn't have time to appreciate it. A pinstripe suit should be valued and appreciated, but you were too busy getting devoured by the most dangerous creature in the world. Pound for pound. So we start the chapter... We start the chapter basically recapping that things are pretty bad. Chris is basically like, hey, I have to get clean back to the ship because she's freaking right the fuck out. The witch is like, hey, we've lost contact with Hermit and Wise. They ask Laguna to head to the ship and try to find them. They throw a joke that Moskoy will handle the rest of the ships. Who cares? We go back to creepy doctor dude, whose name I don't bother remembering. He's basically holding up Wise, doing his big threatening thing. Like, oh, this is so interesting. Wise is like, huh, I guess I could just use Arsenal. He's like, no, wait, that won't work. And then he's like, wait, no, it will work. And then he uses it and punches the doctor away. Immediately goes over and starts comforting Hermit, which is good. He does his Iron Man mask pull up to be like, hey, look, it's a friend. You have a friend here. You're okay. And it's a very little sweet moment for the bit.
It's the best part of the two chapters, honestly.
Yeah. Immediately the doctor just starts going like, oh no, I won't let you. Time to push the evil switch. And he pushes it, and I guess all the robots get even more evil. So before, where they were just making people walk around and act like dogs, now they just shoot and kill them. So I guess that is a little bit more evil. That is true. Rebecca is watching on, and then like an adorable little girl who I don't think we've seen before walks in the frame like, help me. So Rebecca...
No, we haven't seen it before, no. Before we go too far beyond it, the scene where the human who is acting like a dog gets shot is so weird because it's one of those things, it's like Hiro was doing one of his joke fetish bits and then interrupted it with murder. Like it's such a weird jump from that.
Yeah. Rebecca jumps in. I did not. The panel where she actually jumps in was very confusing to me. I legit, when I first saw the panel, I was like, is that Mavis from Fairy Tail jumping in? I was like, oh no, I guess that's Rebecca. It's just very difficult to tell because the outfit's not exactly clear. Also a weird upskirt shot, but whatever.
There's also no transition from where she tells Happy that they need to stop it. Like, there's one panel where she says to Happy, and Happy goes, "I," and you can see like he's starting to split into the guns. But then the very next panel is she's done a cartwheel while shooting the guns. Like, there needed to be at least one more frame between those.
So Rebecca says, and we cut over to Shiki, who's talking to the mysterious robot man, who basically just goes on a long rant about fucking gravity and how it's the weight of the heart. Look, gravity is going to be the fucking theme of this series. Apparently, gravity is also friendship. It'll allow you to make it. It's apparently not going to be a one-time thing that he was able to use his gravity to pull fucking Dracojo's memories into him, because he's like, yes, sometimes it makes others' hearts fall into you. It also sometimes attracts a young woman from the future. So maybe that is supposed to be playing some part into why Rebecca's cat leaper power kind of works the way it does. Basically just like, hey, it's very dangerous. Fucking Elsie and Justice are continuing their stupid fight. The robots show up. They fight them in a bunch of attacks. They temporarily team up to fight the robots. And then mysterious robot guy just uses a big Magitech attack to basically like gravity everyone to the planet for a moment. And everyone's like, whoa, what happened? Shiki's like, what did you do? Who are you? And the robot's like, I am the Magitech School of Gravity Martial Arts. I am its founder, Xenolith. I was Ziggy's mentor. That's the end of our first chapter. And then we're going to go over to chapter 126, Nick. This doctor, armed and dangerous.
So weird.
Homura needs
weird
more
grammar.
support, I think, in this cover page. I'm going to leave it at that. So yeah, this is Xenolith. Yeah. Xenolith is the Ziggy's
she needs way more support.
Yeah.
That poor woman.
Yeah, I was just like, I feel like there should be straps or something. I guess we're in the magic future world, but anyways, Xenolith is Ziggy's mentor. This is a character we did get like teased about, so there is something to this. Basically, like, yeah, I trained him. They show the flashback. It's a very Cobra Kai kind of thing of like, look, we assumed you forgot this, so we're going to show the flashback that this happened so you have the context going forward. Because Hermit basically said, like, oh, yeah, Master Xenolith, instructor into Magitech Arts. And Shiki was immediately like, oh, can we be friends? And she interrupts him, was like, he died 1,000 years ago. And yes. Shiki's like, but wait, I heard you died 1,000 years ago. He's like, oh, yeah, I did. Well, my human body did. There's supposed to be a joke, I guess, running that Shiki doesn't have the reaction he wants when he says big things. I'm just skipping over it because it's stupid. He's like, yeah, I was a human. I was one of the heavenly knights of the dancing Sakura, which I guess might be another group we might be introduced to at some point. Maybe if we go back in time to the chronophage, which definitely feels like that's what this is setting up to. He's basically just a wacky guy who's just like, oh, fuck, I wish Ziggy hadn't taught you all those stupid fucking moves. That asshole, I should have gotten a patent on all my shit. I should be getting paid for this. But he's
see, Chris, he's a robot, but he didn't always used to be a robot, so he has a very wacky personality. Yeah. Unlike all the robots who don't have wacky personalities in Eden Zero. Everyone who's a robot in this series and has always been a robot and not wacky at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Moskoy is in this fight scene, and
it's actually a very good point. And now that we know that humans can just also become robots, it really makes the robot racism in the world make less and less sense. But hey, you know what? Doesn't have to make sense. The whole scene just ends with Xenolith being like, yes, Ziggy has fallen to gravity. I hope. The dark side of gravity. There's dark gravity, Nick. Nick, I don't know if you know, there's a morality to gravity. There's a light side and dark side. They have to be in perfect balance with one another, or the gravity goes out of whack. So, you know, I hope you don't fall into dark gravity.
So when I was listening to that Sonic the Hedgehog song about going right through gravity, I didn't realize that that was actually about penetrating the stereotypical views of good and evil. I just thought it was a silly song from a Sonic game that involved, flying around and defying gravity.
Oh
But
no! Every
no.
every Sonic the Hedgehog song has intricately deep lyrics. Follow me, trust in me, and we will escape from the city. That's talking about capitalism, Nick. Capitalism is destroying us all, and we need to work together. It's symbolized in the game by a truck, the infrastructure that keeps capitalism going, coming straight towards us, the player in that screen. And it's only once we escape it that now that we become Sonic, we're in his world, and that's why the camera turns, and suddenly we have his viewpoint now.
And Live and Learn is actually an anti-abortion. Got that one. All right.
Holy shit. All right. Elsie and Justice are doing their stupid thing. They explain the gravity stopped them from killing each other because their attacks missed their vitals. So they're fine. And basically, they're just not going to continue the fight. We cut over. Homura's cage has fallen out of the one dude's hand, and the big dude almost steps on it. So I guess they're like, well, we'll unlock the cage so she doesn't get crushed, so she survives. So Homura's out. And that fight just kind of ends because everyone decided they didn't want to fight anymore or something.
God.
I don't know.
I was going to say something much more neutral at the end of these two chapters, but this moment, when I read it, I was just like, what? Why?
We needed a conclusion to that fight that didn't have anything interesting happen. So Rebecca shows up and picks some more up on the bike. By the way, she has that little girl on it. And the little girl's like, oh no, I hope nothing bad happened to my egg robot friend. And we immediately cut to a flashback of the egg robot getting sniped to death again. And she's like,
everyone's like, oh, but I really want one of them to be like,
like she's immediately like, hey, can you help me find my egg robot? My egg robot has to be so sad. And Rebecca has to be like, if it helps, he's not crying anymore. He's certainly not in pain anymore.
There, like everyone's like, oh, listen, honey. He's like, oh yeah, that guy, yeah, he's dead.
Oh yeah, like I wish Homura. This is why it's an inconsistent thing, because Homura absolutely should be like, oh man, that robot's dead as shit. He got sniped right through the fucking head. Oops, I said it out loud again.
Oh man! Hopefully, this little girl will be able to cope with this and won't dwell on the fact that her friend that she loved and cherished isn't gone forever.
It's like everyone loved Egg Robot. He was everyone's friend. No one would hurt him. Elsie and Justice's fight ends. Elsie basically just vanishes away. I forget what her name is, but female member of Intergalactic is Holy, whatever her name is. I also forgot it. Oration 6 Interstellar, because Galactica is the bad guy version. I don't think this one's the good guy version either. I guess the Chaos version, New Order version. Basically is there to chastise him and be like, hey, you know what? If you want to keep fucking around with your ex-girlfriend or whatever, that's fine. But you should pay attention to Nero because he's definitely going to do something soon, especially for what Ziggy has done to Forresta. Clean gets back to the ship. She is really having a bad time. She's like, someone really, really bad is here. Immediately, Chris is like, use whatever parts of me you need to. Just save her. Sister's like, I'll do it. Cut to the ship. Apparently, a doctor's made of super metal. He can't be hurt. He's impossible to hurt. And he decides to use this opportunity to explain about how he did it. He's like, yes, I used lots of guinea pigs to get this point. My best work was on the Rutherford siblings. I was so cartoonishly evil to an extent I don't know. I don't even know what the purpose was. I just tied up the sister and made her watch as I tortured the brother. There was no. I called it science, but I didn't learn anything from it. In my lab report, I gave it a name and a number and everything. I was like, experiment 004. I'm gonna hit the brother now with the chainsaw while the sister watches. At the end, reporting results from Expanded 500 with the chainsaw. It was very funny. I laughed quite a lot.
He's like, all right, now to see if I rejected my null hypothesis. I didn't write down what it was, so I don't know. Okay, I guess we have to do this all over again.
Oh, no. My hypothesis that this would be 400% funnier than the last time I did it, I proved it correct, although my next hypothesis will be, what if I did it with 2 chainsaws? Anyways, I'm the smartest doctor in the universe.
Okay, so I'm just going to go with my original comment about these chapters. So this is all dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, there are little tidbits here and there throughout it that make me go, okay, that'd actually probably be kind of interesting. And it makes me realize, yes, this is why Hero still has fans, is that some of the ideas that he has are interesting, and everything moves at such a blistering pace all the time that if something doesn't work, you just move past it anyway. And if you have a positive outlook on these things, you just remember the cool bits, and then everything else just kind of like gets moved on from very quickly.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of the siblings. Like, the reason why they are the way that they are is that there was this one incident where one of them was tampered with physically, and that affected the other one emotionally, and that's where they are right now. It's a cool idea. I have no idea why the two of them, however, are nowhere near the Doctor right now, if they are apparently intrinsically tied to him. And it seems like this entire sequence is almost as packed as the Wano arc in One Piece in terms of all the shit that's going on.
This is 2 chapters, and it feels like 40 chapters happened in the span of this. Like, a bunch happens, and a lot of it... I think the biggest issue I have is I don't understand why the fuck this Doctor is important to so many characters' life when he is not an interesting character at all. He is just a sadistic, weird doctor, and he's responsible for the trauma for like 3 different crew members on the Eden Zero at this point. Like, why?
I guess he's the villain of this arc.
I guess, but again, why? Why this character? Why a character with this little personality? And like, it just seems very odd to me. But I didn't even realize as I was making the chainsaw joke that in the actual flashback he was wielding a chainsaw for it. Of fucking course he is. Of course he's using the chainsaw. No, these chapters were stupid. There's a couple decent bits in them, but yeah, I feel like we're moving towards a section of the series that is going to be very, very dumb very soon. I feel like dark gravity might be a thing, and yeah.
And apparently Shiki's gravity powers and drawing things that aren't physical towards him is going to be a thing as well going forward. So, all right. Magu-chan, God of Destruction, Chapter 27, a destructive first shrine visit of the year. It's the new year, kind of wrapping up the holiday arc that has involved Ruru's mom visiting. And it's New Year, so they're going to go on the first shrine visit of the year, as you know, as a big tradition in Japan. And so they're going out to do that. So Ruru goes with her mom. They also bring Magu along, and immediately Magu realizes, like, wait a minute, this is the place that we were at during the summer festival. I demonstrated my powers once before, but the shrine still gathers more lowly human followers. So he decides that he needs to demonstrate that he is superior to their pathetic local god. And so he's going to basically go all around and do a bunch of things to gain followers. I guess it's his idea to begin with. He doesn't really seem to act that way. He seems like he's just goofing around when he does this after he splits into 7 morphlactics. And he just goes and spreads all around in order to gather humans to worship him. And then just kind of hides instead. It's weird. It basically becomes a scavenge hunt for Ruru from there. She has to go all around the festival and find all the various morphlactics of Magu. her mom makes a joke after the Morpholactics split off that if they gather all 7, maybe they can make a wish. Hey.
I get that. That's a Yu-Gi-Oh reference. Hot dog.
Yeah, that's right. If you gather all 7 pieces of Exodia, you can make a wish.
It's his arms, his legs, his body, his head, and his cock. His cock is its own piece. It's the biggest piece, though. It's like an extra large card.
Chris, I made that joke when I was 13, so...
And then I stole it and made it 30 years, 20 years later, Nick.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I saved it from the bin.
Cool. One of the first things that happened is that Ruru runs into Ren and Rin. Rin at first looks a lot shorter than Ren, but I'm pretty sure it's just because she's slacking off, drugging out as she always does.
She's just like, holy shit, the monsters are back. Fuck yeah, I didn't even drop acid today. This is the best day of my life.
Ruru gets the idea to just cut the plot of the chapter short by getting Naputaku to use his shout to just get all the Magu-chans gathered up. But he's drunk, so that's not going to happen. So Ruru just ends up going around the festival. I'm just going to kind of skip ahead. She finds one with like candy apples. She finds one fighting with one of the festival dragons. Ruru's mom starts getting really into the scavenging hunt and like starts scoring something. She's never really clarified what it is she's scoring. Eventually, they also come across Uneris and Izuma, and they use one of the Magus as like a ball for like table tennis or something like that. That gets them down to just there's one Magu-chan left that they have to find, and so they get the idea to get the Morpholactics to eat some mochi so that the last one will be jealous and will be drawn towards them. So they actually jump into like the mochi kneading pit, the mochi pounding pit thing, and Izuma is like, I'm going to hit them. And so he gets the mallet and tries to hit them. And instead it kind of joins them into a weird mass that's gooed in with all the mochi. And the last Magu-chan was hiding up in the sky as a kite, gathering followers, I guess.
As noble kites often do.
Yeah. So it gets upset that the other Magus were, getting offerings and he wasn't, so it cannibalizes them and then explodes into a giant fireball in the sky. And so we just kind of catch up with everyone later on. Ruru, does her thing where she does a punishment by tying up Magu, but he doesn't seem all that put off by it. But anyway, and that's it. That's New Year's, and it's time for Ruru and her mom to say goodbye. So they embrace, and she says, "Hey, I'm glad that I got to meet you, Magu-chan." And then she said, and Ruru is like, "Oh man, even after all the trouble that he caused," but her mom says, "No, now that I've met him, I realize that he is a god of destruction, but he's not a bad god. He has such a gentle eye. Please continue looking after my Ruru." And that's basically it. She leaves, and Ruru wishes her safe travels. And that's the end of this little saga with Ruru and her mom. So that's Magu-chan for this week.
Yeah. So I really like the last 2 pages where Ruru's mom. Sorry, I forgot even the characters.
I think it's Ruri.
Yeah, I couldn't even remember Ruru's name for a while. I wanted to call her Ren. Ruru's mom's goodbye is very sweet. I like that. It's a sweet little moment. I like her being like, no, this is actually a good god. I can see it. He has a very gentle eye. And that does feel very true. It does. That's kind of the joke of Magu-chan, but he is drawn in a very gentle way. And it does feel like that's something that Ruru's mom would be able to identify and be like, no, I think you're good to have around my daughter, actually. She's going to need friends right now. So I like that. The rest of the chapter, I mean, yeah, some people are saying it's very culture dependent. I don't even think it's necessarily that culturally dependent. I think by this point I've seen enough Japanese festivals and manga and video games that I can kind of gather the tropes. I just don't think it's particularly hilarious. So it's sort of like we had to do that to get to like the end where a good thing happened. And at this point, I just assumed festivals in Magu-chan are cursed and are never interesting chapters. So, but I did like the very end.
It was okay. Yeah, I thought that all the festival shenanigans and stuff were, I don't know, it was really weird to go through it and be like, so this is what Chris means whenever there's a mediocre comedy in Jump.
Yeah.
It's just like there's a lot of jokes and I know jokes are happening, but none of them are funny to me.
Yeah, it's very exhausting.
But yes, I agree with you that at least the last 2 pages, there is a nice little heartwarming thing, and it's nice to see that after Ruru's mom met Magu, that they got to really, really understand each other. So, But let's move on from there to Dr. Stone. Z equals 181. New World Science. Last time, of course, everyone discovered all of the petrification devices, making a big-ass pyramid in the middle of South America. We get a 2-page color spread at the beginning of this chapter that has nothing to do with that. Instead, it looks like Senku built a portal into the One Piece world and saved Ace's life.
Nick, I'm not gonna lie. When I first read that cover page, I got a little choked up because there was something so very sweet to the idea that the Jump protagonists are all kind of united in their own goal, that like Senku would create this portal to save Ace's life for, like, I don't know why, but I was just like, thank you, Senku. And then I realized it's like, I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me, but it got me emotional for some reason. I was like, fuck yeah, Senku, you saved Ace. And I like Akanu's like,
and you gave him nipples.
Yeah, and Kanu's fucking little hand who's just like, like he just has a big question mark. He's like, what happened?
Also, Suika's in the background, and she can see what happened too.
Yeah,
from a very odd perspective. So, in the actual plot of the series, Senku grabs a handful of petrification devices and just goes 1 meter 3 seconds, and then chucks them away from himself, and none of them activate after everyone has a little bit of a freak out about him trying to do that. So, emboldened by this, Taiju goes, guys, if I turn into Stone Taiju again, give me some of that sweet revival fluid. And he just goes Scrooge McDucking into the piles of petrification devices and going 1 meter 1 second. And he just goes hopping from pile to pile, and none of them activate. So Senku's like, yeah, nothing here works. They're all out of juice. And Ryusui agrees and says, and it's not about how much time has passed. The one on Treasure Island died after zapping the entire island, so it's no surprise that the ones that covered the entire island would be dead too. So, presumably, of course, these are all the devices that were activated together in order to petrify the Earth, so they would have exhausted their powers covering the entire globe. Makes sense. Zeno goes, gives a little speech saying, like, it must have been quite a sight to see all of them doing that, and then flashing and creating a layer of stone over everything. And Gen's like, hey, can I see your right hand? The one that and maybe you put a Medusa device in your pocket. You just gave a cool speech in order to divert everyone's attention away from the fact that you were trying to sneak one away. Yeah, I'm a mentalist. I see through that. So. But Senku says, whatever. He can have it. Battery's dead. He can't cause any trouble with it. We're guarding him. He can't really do anything. But hey, if your interest is piqued, we can use your knowledge for our research, because our only chance of winning against Stanley's people involves using the Medusa. So Suika says, but if they're all useless, what can we do with them? But Tsukasa says, this vast quantity gives us a new option, though. And he puts on, like, some brass knuckles, which, okay. I don't think we've ever seen him use that before. But he just...
I feel like we saw it once, but I can't. It feels vaguely familiar, but I don't know. Yeah, it was something where I was like, oh, I guess we have brass knuckles.
he just starts using them to smash some petrification devices. And of course, they realize, like, hey, we've got Joel over on the other side. He can do some of the delicate autopsies and stuff like that. But if we've got all of these various different expired Medusas, we can just willy-nilly smash them open in order to find out how they work, basically. So start working on that. We cut over to the Perseus, and Matsukaze and Ginro are talking about how worthless they are. Then Stanley is talking with some people about how they're, trying to track down the Science Kingdom. And the guy that they've got watching the radar says that, their bike trails say that they escaped down the Amazon River, which means that they are going to eventually have to construct a new ship. And when that happens, that's going to slow them down, which means even though we are taking the long way, going all the way around the tail of South America, we are going to catch up to them, which means that this is going to take a while for them because that's a long trip to make.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they say there's no way they can hide either because we've got radar and they can't hide from that. Meanwhile, everyone's been working on a ship over in the Science Kingdom, and it's a really weird shape with some sharp angles to it. And there's slanting faces and stuff like that. Nukio immediately realizes what it is, of course, because of his background. They are trying to make a stealth vessel, something that has weird, jagged, slanted edges to it, which will bounce radar waves away in a way that makes it difficult to be detected. So they make a stealth ship. There are some remarks about how guys like sharp angle designs. Yeah, shut up. But they do a test with some radar, and Nukio's like, I mean, it's kind of sort of showing up. It's stealth-ish. It's hard to detect for its size, but they're still not hidden completely from radar. Chrome starts to get an idea, and he's like, hard to detect for its size, so being larger in volume makes it easier to see on radar. And Risu's like, yeah, if it's really, really big, it's really easy to see on radar. And so Chrome points out, well, this huge, massive Medusas came crashing down to Earth when the Earth was petrified, so why didn't anyone notice them back then? And so they realize that the odd shape of the Medusas, the weird sort of double helix, what is it called? Oh gosh, Mobius, the sort of double Mobius strip that it is, it doesn't show up on radar for whatever reason. So that's part of the design is for function. And so they're like, oh, well, interesting. So Chrome goes, okay, well, if they don't show up on radar, why don't we take a whole bunch of these and stick them all over the ship? And they do. And they start setting sail. And Zeno is kind of left in his new prison brig. And he looks at the petrification device that he was allowed to keep, and he goes, science is truly elegant. And I guess he's supposed to sound sinister or something like that. But anyway, that's the end of the chapter.
I think it's supposed to be more I think it is supposed to be more wondrous. I think it's supremely stupid they let him keep Medusa. Like, It just seems like a stupid idea that the heroes shouldn't have done, because at any point, if they found a way to, like, activate it again, it'd be bad. But I feel like we're inevitably going to get some kind of a quasi face turn for Zeno, and him having a fake Medusa might be part of how he, like, does a bluff or something like that. But that feels like a very written way to do that, whereas it feels like the heroes should much more be like, take that thing away from him. Like, I don't know, like, just to be safe,
Well, they've already established in the series when Joel was experimenting on it that if you take the power source out and put it back in, then it can give it a little bit of a spark of life, very briefly. So it having run out of juice does not mean that it will not absolutely work. So
yeah, I guess the concept is that it took somebody who has the precision of, like, a watchmaker to do that, and that Zeno just won't have that precision or something like that. Regardless, that part was really, really dumb. But I really, really liked Chrome being the one to kind of put everything together. It is a little odd that no one else had at any point, like while they were building this big stealth vessel, was just like, how did yeah, someone was like, how did this thing even get here or whatever? Like, how did nobody like know that was like? It took Chrome to kind of be like, hey, why is it like this, basically? But I do like that, and I really do like the idea that they've acquired this kind of futuristic stealth ship because they're just covering it in all of these Medusas that are just hanging around. It just seems like a really creative idea, and I do like that Chrome was the one to have it.
Yeah, it was a really cool contribution for his character to make. So.
Really dug it. All right, Nick, let's talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 46, Rain, Aims, and God's Gift. So the chapter starts off with Mash playing the board game again, and it ends the exact same way. He lands on the space, says, discovered he can't use magic, game over. And everyone's like, oh, man, that stinks. He just can't get past it. I was like, Finn, who's like, I didn't even know there were game overs in this game. Like, what awful game has a game over in it for one player? The Oregon Trail board game, that's the game. So Mash is just like, I'm going to go step out for a while. And everyone's like, oh, Mash, he's playing it cool, but it's eating up inside. This is so tough. And actually, he's just running out into the forest so he can eat his giant specialty cream puff all alone.
Is he worried about being judged? Or does he not want to share?
I think he doesn't want to share. I think he doesn't want to have someone just take it from him.
Also, where was he keeping that?
I don't know, but he had it. I just love how fast he runs just so he can pull out this giant cream puff. He's like, finally, we're alone. This is, of course, this is, of course, all just a way to get him present so we can actually see this fight that's happening between Rain and Margaret. And that fight's currently at this stalemate right now. Margaret's surrounded Rain with all these music notes that are basically going to explode the moment he tries to cast a spell. And Margaret's just like, you know what? A triple liner, a God-gifted talent to find someone at my age who's achieved that level. I am so very blessed. And basically just goes on like a whole little spiel about all this. Like, yes, you're caught. You'll never be able to get out of this. You've been in check since the moment I surrounded him. And Rain's just like, did Order put you up to this? It's not like you to actually give a shit about what happens at the school, so I just have to assume this is Order's doing. And he's just like, all right, well, what are you trying to infer? He's like, hey, I know you're after the kid. He can't use magic. He may as well have no rights. I mean, who wouldn't despair at that? Jealous of those who have magic, regretting he was ever born, hating society, all of those would be reasonable reactions. Mash doesn't think like that. He fights against his fate. And not that an underhanded rat like you would understand. And Margaret's just like, oh, what a very cute speech that is. But I couldn't care less. Ha ha.
Fine speech.
Yes. We basically get some retconning to explain why a super powerful member of the Orca dorm wasn't kind of involved in like the coin hunt and everything like that happened before. Basically saying, oh, well, he got a bunch of coins, but he just distributed them out to different members of Orca dorm. So that's why there really wasn't anything really considerate like that. That's why he's not been like a divine visionary candidate or anything along those lines. So he's basically just like, hey, you know what? You can produce a lot of magic, but skill matters too. And Margaret's skills and technique are top class. So you just can't do it. He closes his eyes and envisions himself in an auditorium to cheering fans. And he's like, yes, I can hear them. And his little cronies are playing music. And there's going to be a giant attack. Shoots a bunch of music. And he's like, you'll have to cast magic now. Check. And then we cut away to Wahlberg and the dude who explains things. And it's just like, so what exactly extinguishes a triple liner from a double liner? It's like, well, a three liner is chosen by the god, meaning they can unleash more power than a double liner. But that is not the only thing they can do. They can also Bankai. And it's like, he's like, what do you mean, Bankai? I said, it's a magic from the god. And Rain's wand starts to glow, and all of, like, it's just a big sound, like a wave comes out, knocks all the music notes away. And he says, "Summon Ares, god of war." And Wahlberg says,
"There." Use doom effects and blade rifts. Got it. Cool.
He says, "Their power can call upon a god's strength from within a wand." And he suddenly has a big trident, basically. It's crackling with power. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Is his wand changed form? This is the sword cane, the divine visionary of war. And Rain just responds, "Checkmate," and then uses black partisan. And that's the way the chapter ends, as Margaret faces down what definitely looks to be his impending doom.
Yeah, it looks scary. I really do like the way that this looks once Rain unleashes this power. It's so weird to go from like just pure comedy chapters in Mashle to the intense, very traditional shonen action scenes that happen. But it looks really, really cool. So I give it that.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I know some people are saying this feels a little bit too early to kind of introduce a new mechanic or anything like that, but it is kind of worth noting the only character who we've seen have it, and the only characters we can presume to have it, are the characters who are in the hierarchy of the world above MASH. So there are a lot of things. There are second death spells and whatever the era cruise or whatever Dot supposedly is. So there are a bunch of stuff in the world that's kind of still left to, I guess, explore to some extent. But I just like aesthetically where this goes. It is just Bankai, but Bankai was pretty dope. So you know what? Yeah. I'm fine with it.
And if you want to listen to how dope we feel individual Bankais are, you can listen to the Weekly Recap bonus episode where we did a tier list of all the Bankais in the series.
Yeah.
It's up on the Patreon.
Yep.
I look forward to whenever Mash unleashes the true power of his wand, and it's just by going out into the woods and getting a thick branch instead.
Well, he has a wand. He has that lead pipe wand, and I hope his Bankai is to just throw it really hard at somebody's head.
All right, let's do Ayakashi Triangle, Chapter 28, Nostalgic Home. We pick up this little chapter in media res, where Matsuri and Suzu are in a house, and they can't get out. There is some sort of invisible barrier preventing them from leaving, apparently due to some sort of an Ayakashi power. Then there's a cover page where Matsuri is just playing naked guitar. All right. We then cut to before they went into this house.
Nick, haven't you ever played your guitar naked? Come on.
No, for various reasons.
Okay.
So, Genraku, the artist guy, basically told them that there was a house that he was interested in buying and turning into a studio, but it's already occupied. And Matsuri's like, well, you're an Ayakashi too. Why don't you just go get chummy with it? And Genraku's like, they won't open their hearts to me, so I need help from you guys. And he points out, I mean, Matsuri, you're an exorcist ninja. Suzu, you're the king of Ayakashi. You both have to take care of the situation. Garaku sends them on their way after providing them with the key of the place. So they go in and take a look at it, along with Shirogane, who is immediately thrown out by some sort of invisible force. And the door slams and keeps the two humans from getting out. Garaku's like, yeah, I figured you would get kicked out, to Shirogane. And they just kind of wait for the kids to deal with the situation. Matsuri tries to use his wind locating jutsu thing to try and find where the Ayakashi is, but it doesn't work. And as they're looking around the place, a TV and various furniture appear within the living room. And it's like, oh my god, furniture just appeared, like someone's still living here. And Matsuri starts to shout a warning to Suzu to be careful, but instead goes, let's watch some TV in the living room. And Suzu's like, wait a minute, that sounds kind of weird. All right, yeah, let's do it. Let's relax and watch TV. And it's honestly legit kind of creepy for a little bit because they're just watching a static image on the TV and they laugh at it like something is happening. And they're both aware of what's going on and how weird it is that they're just doing stuff and kind of like acting out life, even though it's like a shadow play, basically. Mm-hmm. But over time, the fact that they're physically being forced to go through it starts to affect their minds as well. And they're both enjoying getting to just spend time with each other as they're doing it. And they both kind of think, if we were just, to stay here, then no one could bother us and we could just, have a good time together and we could be close to each other. And also, of course, they're getting kind of touchy with each other, getting physically close, and they almost kiss. They almost kiss, Chris. Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute. Nick, hold on. But Matsuri's not in his boy form. Two girls can't kiss. Like, biologically, I don't think that can happen, right?
The part of Shirogane will not be played by Chris. I honestly would appreciate if like a character were just to be that blunt about it in this series. Like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense.
It's not physically possible for two girls to kiss. I've seen pictures.
However, just before Matsuri and Suzu are going to kiss, suddenly a weird presence appears behind Suzu. It looks a lot like Suzu herself, but dressed differently in like dark versions of her usual kind of hoodie and with very long hair. And she says to Suzu, "You can't accept this. This is false happiness. A poor Ayakashi is manipulating you to indulge in its memories. This isn't the real Matsuri. Right now, you're in a position where you can't do anything about it. I'll show you how it's done. Although you might forget again." And Suzu kind of collapses, which confuses Matsuri. And when she gets up, she has seemingly taken on the long-haired girl's presence. Like she starts to completely physically resemble her. And very easily, this presence inside Suzu solves the problem. She says that she can sense the memories from the Ayakashi's energy, and she draws out the Ayakashi, which it basically looks like a tiny cartoonish house with eyes. And she says, "This Ayakashi came to be when decades of happy memories of an elderly couple were embedded in this house. It's a lost house. It watched over the couple for a long time, but now they're gone. Since this Ayakashi was born from their memories, it will lose its power soon. You wanted to see them, didn't you? Even if you had to borrow someone else's body, you just wanted to see the couple the way they used to be." So she casts out her hand and conjures an illusion of the couple when they were young and in love and stuff. The lost house gets teary-eyed watching them together, goes over to join them briefly, and the presence in the house dissipates and vanishes. Garaku and Shirogane observe this from outside, and Shirogane is like, "You knew exactly what kind of Ayakashi was here, and you planned this." Okay. Cut inside again, the presence possessing Suzu thanks Matsuri and says, "Because of you, I was able to become Suzu Kanade," with quotes around it. Matsuri asks who they are, but the presence fades, Suzu collapses, and then she wakes up shouting about tiramisu because she likes sweets.
Mm-hmm. Did not particularly care for this chapter, Nick. Don't really. This is a character change that we haven't had teased at any point, to my knowledge. So the idea that there's like a dark Suzu inside of Suzu's kind of coming out of left field, and this is, I do not think, a particularly interesting way to reveal this bit of information. We're introduced to a concept. It is solved in the same chapter in about like 6 pages from when it's introduced first to us. And it's solved by a character we don't know, and I guess we're supposed to care about now. I was actually kind of interested in the idea that these two were just getting caught up in the life that this couple lived happily in this house, and it was kind of this very creepy thing. No one could talk to them. Would they be able to break out of it themselves? And instead, something just shows up and is like, "I solved it," and you're like, "Oh." It really kind of makes it obvious how much of a plot device the actual house was in all of this, that it was really just a reason for you to appear at this point.
Yeah, because this new president has literally only just shown up for the first time after not really being hinted toward at all whatsoever, I don't really know what to think of this yet. I think that I'm there with you, though, that I liked the chapter more before she showed up. Mostly because I know that I did like it, and now I don't really know what to think after she showed up. So I see what your point is. I'm not as down on it as you are, but I definitely definitely get where you're coming from. So, Black Clover, I guess.
Yep, let's talk about Black Clover, Nick. Page 278, Undying Bodies. We get a pretty interesting cover page with a lot of nudity. Bloody nudity. So there you go. I know you've been craving it. You were like, when are we going to get some hot pictures of the Dark Triad? And it looks like Tabata finally got all of those letters, Nick.
Is it hot? Well, I guess to some people it's very hot, actually. So
Nick, for how often I have people come into my store and ask if we have like fucking Jack Skellington merchandise and like My Chemical Romance t-shirts. Yes, I think bloody art and shit like that is still very erotic to some people. Anyways, Dante's actually like just fully alive again. I thought maybe he'd be like some kind of zombie version of himself. But no, they just fixed it back up, and he's basically like, yep, anyway, I'm going to use gravity, so nothing except anti-magic has a way of hurting me. And Nature Boy Flair's like, so if this is going to work, we're going to have to rely on Jack's magic to cut things that can't be cut. However, he sucks too much right now. Basically, they're using gravity. It's keeping him down. Nature Boy Flair merges with one of his other demons, and this is kind of a nice touch. He literally becomes the Black Bull headquarter, like a version of that, and I thought that was kind of a nice touch. It's basically his way of kind of being too tough to withstand gravity a little bit, but they're like, yeah, this won't really do anything in the long run, because at the end of the day, we need someone to actually hurt this guy. And we can't. So it's like, hey, stupid Jack the Ripper, can you get up and be a hero? And Jack the Ripper's like, have I ever told you the story of my father? And I guess Ukitake needed a fucking flashback too, for as little as I cared about that character. So I guess here's yours.
I don't think Ukitake did get a flashback.
Well, we got teases, I guess, this stuff. Anyway, yeah, there you go, Jack the Ripper. You're better than Ukitake. He's like, yeah, my dad was a hunter who just said, like, hey, don't fuck with anything that looks stronger than you. And then guess what? He got fucked up by something that was stronger than him. And I said, you know what? I'm going to kill that bear. And I did it. Anyway, my backstory is really traumatic or something. I'm a praying mantis and I cut things. You can't stop an insect. And he cuts the shit out of Dante.
This chapter is so dumb.
It wasn't until I started like really like bridging it there that I was like, wow, that's so stupid when you just cut it down a little bit.
Jack's backstory sucks, okay? I lived on the woods. My dad told me not to mess with shit that was stronger than me. Then he died, and I was like, I could kill that thing, so I did. And then I decided I want to cut down everything that looks stronger than me. Cool.
But Nick, he can cut things.
Because my dad got killed by orcs. So.
But Nick, he can cut things that can't be cut, which includes gravity somehow. So he can cut through gravity. And that is apparently very cool. Super, look, we had to get, I guess, something for him. He was introduced in this fight. Yeah, we probably didn't. But we had to do, you know, every one of these guys needs their false finish, and I guess there just wasn't something to reveal with Nature Boy Ric Flair here. If there is, I guess we're still kind of yet to get it. So it's pretty boring and stupid, but it is what happened. So there you go. Jack the Ripper, the great hero with the tragic backstory of his dad having gotten killed by a bear, so he killed that bear.
I hope that Dante doesn't kick out of this super kick. Nobody ever kicks out of a super kick.
Nick, he's taken like a V trigger and a roll up. He's done.
All right, I'm done. It's stupid, bad. All right, One Piece, Chapter 1001, Battle of Monsters on Onigashima. with a nice little chapter of Jinbei chilling out with some jellyfish on the title. Isn't
I'm
that
happy.
nice?
He looks like he's really relaxing.
So, last chapter, Luffy got pissed off at Kaido and punched him into the ground. This chapter opens up with, and of course he declared he was going to be king of the pirates. So Big Mom's like, "You freaking brat! You're still going to say you're going to be the king of the pirates?" And Kaido's like, "Oh my god, he actually hit me and hurt me." Zoro realizes, I guess that he learned the hockey from the old man in Wano, which Kid is also surprised by. Then Law says to Luffy, "I just want to tell you," but he gets cut off by Big Mom, who's shouting at him about how arrogant it was to say he was going to be king of the pirates. Kaido wants to know how the hell this guy got stronger after he nearly destroyed him earlier in the arc, and he looks at Luffy and he sees the shadows of Odin and Dragon and Roger and Whitebeard behind him. At least I think that's is that Dragon? The guy on the left?
I think that's Rocks.
Oh, okay. And also I believe Shank's in the middle.
Yes, it's Shanks right behind him, who's kind of a little bit obscured, but
right. But he sees the images of them all surrounding Luffy, and he thinks to himself, "How high will your ceiling go?" And he actually seems kind of happy as he starts to fight against Luffy. He uses his Thunder Bagua, and Luffy only barely manages to avoid getting decimated by it. And he's sent rolling along the ground, and he says to himself, "Ah, man, I was reading the future and everything. It's so fast." Big Mom jumps in as well with Prometheus, but Zoro jumps in and uses Kinemon's Foxfire Flame Rend technique in order to cut it open and prevent Luffy from being hurt. And Luffy goes, "That's Kinemon's technique." And Zoro goes, "Heh, I stole it." Prometheus, of course, has been cut in half, which is bad. And Zoro shouts a warning to Luffy. He's like, "Hey, don't lose focus for a single instant. There are two embers of the sea here." And as he's saying that, Kaido is coming up to follow up and smash Luffy as well. So Law has to use his Chamber's ability to port Luffy away to safety. And then he finishes this thought that he had earlier, which is, "I just want to make one thing clear. I was already planning to move the samurai below, but then you said, 'Hey, Travis, send them all below.' And that made it sound like I was following your orders."
I love that moment so much that he's got this. He's like, "I want to make it clear. I was going to do it. I'm not following your orders. I want to make that very clear."
And Luffy doesn't care about this because he's like, "Come on, it's the same difference. I don't care." But Kid starts getting in on it. It's like, "Oh yeah, Trafalgar Law, you're a Straw Hat's henchman now." And I was like, "No!"
That's the best part. It would be such a quick and done thing, but the fact that Kid immediately starts poking, he's like, "Oh, so you work for Straw Hat now?" It's just like, "No, I don't work for Straw Hat. I was going to do it on my own."
And he keeps on going after that too. It's like, "Oh, I mean, hey, it doesn't matter to me which of you two losers wants to follow the other." Meanwhile, Big Mom throws Prometheus at them. And so, this is so wonderful.
I lost my shit the first time I read this.
So Luffy says to Kid and Law as Prometheus is bearing down all three of them because he's launched a fireball at all three. And so Law says in response, "I'm not playing that game, you idiot." And Kid says, "See, coming up with stupid contests like that is why you guys are so small time." And so Luffy says to both of them, "That's fine. I guess you're just losers then." So immediately, they all take part in this stupid contest.
They're all to the point that they're squishing their face back just a little bit because they're all like, "Ugh." And then they all just eat the attack.
Zoro gets pissed at them over this.
I don't know why. It's the funniest thing. All their faces, like the scrunched up chins, as they're trying to look at each other like, "Oh, move away, shit." I don't know why. It was so fucking funny.
Oh man. So Zoro it's time to get serious. Zoro puts his headband on. It's been forever since we've seen him do that.
Did
And
he
he
used it
warns Killer, hey,
against...
don't get in my way.
Did he use it against Pika? I feel like he put his headband on, man. I mean, it didn't.
Might have done
it didn't feel like he needed to, but I feel like he might have. Did he not? Oh.
Even back then, it would have been like 2 years ago since he's done this. So.
Okay, yeah, people are saying he did use it against Pika. Okay,
fair enough.
But yeah, that was like 4 years ago at this point.
He puts on his headband and tells Killer, "Don't get in my way." Hitokiri Kamazo, who is seemingly surprised that he recognized him, but Zoro just says, "You don't hear many people with a laugh that weird." So yeah. But Killer says, "If I was using my Punishers back then, you would be dead right now." But Zoro's like, "No, the outcome would have been the same." And so they get in on it. He uses his 3-sword style to try and cut Kaido with Killer joins in as well with beheading claws, and they seemingly just cut straight through Kaido's neck. And you see a little mark appear on his neck, and that's it. And he just kind of goes, "Well done." And he's
I love how excited he is by all of this. He is so fucking stoked for this fight.
Zoro says to himself that he's got to unleash the Enma a bit more. I think that this is... I believe this is Luffy actually saying this. I can't tell. Whatever. Anyway, Kid and Law and Luffy all just go. Kid is unleashing like all the metal that he brought up with him in this thing called Punk Rotten. Luffy goes Gear 4. Law unleashes Room. And so Kid has this massive mecha thing surrounding him. And they just, all three of them go storming towards Kaido, who's just laughing about this and saying they might as well be monsters in their own right. And Kid says, "We know you've got tough skin, but can it save you from being crushed and compacted to death?" And Law's like, "And I'm going to go straight inside your body and deliver surgical death." And Luffy's preparing his gum.
He's just like, "Oh, okay. You don't have anything cool to say?"
Kaido smirks. Luffy punches him in the gut with Kong Gun. Kid smashes his entire body between these two massive fists. And then Law just drops a bunch of rocks on his head. And he's buried under rubble. But Big Mom shows up above them. She's riding on Zeus. A storm cloud is surrounding her. She's also got whatever her sword is called, I don't remember, in her hand. And she starts laughing. And then Kaido starts laughing as well as he emerges from the rubble in his full dragon form and says, "It would almost be a shame to kill you, but you leave me no choice. Once you are dead, we'll take everything you have. All your manpower and treasure will belong to us." And Big Mom joins in saying, "You got some poneglyphs too, I assume. I can't wait for that." And Kaido wraps up the chapter by saying, "Whoever wins gets that much closer to King of the Pirates." And so we've got these two monsters going up against the 5 pirates there. Basically just kind of relatively the same position we were at last time, but the battle joined in full now. So
this is such a fucking hype chapter. It's so cool. Getting to see everyone use their strong attacks. Zoro putting on the headband. The big reveal of Punk Rotten and like the 2-page spread where we see like the 3 of them using their big move. The 2-page spread to end it as Kaido's in his dragon form with Big Mom there and the like looming in the background with our protagonist in the foreground, and you can see how small, but like it's just a very, very cool visual, and I'm so excited for it. It's such a cool chapter. I know there were some people who were like, "Dude, this should have been chapter 1000," and I get why chapter 1000 was the one it was, because it kind of reaffirms the story of Luffy as a thing. But this is a super exciting chapter. I am so fucking excited for the next chapter, One Piece, and I cannot wait to see more of this fight. This has been so cool already.
This is the kind of chapter that like made me start reading manga when I was a teenager. It's like going big in the fight scene, making it seem bigger than anything. And yeah, it's really satisfying to see it, and it's really nice to see after all the waiting and all of the planning and building and stuff. Yeah, here it is. There's no more putting off the big fight, so here you go, big punches from the get go. So
Yeah,
good goddamn stuff.
pretty much every
And also a really funny joke right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I love the joke of Zoro stealing his move and all of them trying to dodge the fireball and playing chicken. Like, just every page of this chapter is supremely awesome. Like, just so packed. It's great.
And I guess we'll get into that's a nice transition, I think, to wrapping up a weekly manga recap for this week with favorite series and MVP.
It's gonna be One
Have we
Piece.
made it too obvious?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be One Piece.
Yeah, 100%. There were a fair number of chapters that I did not think were all that great this week, but even on a really good week, I feel like this would have been chapter of the week. Yeah, like you said, like it is packed from start to finish. It's exciting, it's funny, and it's cool. So it is, if you are a One Piece fan, what you've been wanting for a while, probably. So
The audience also agrees it's the character or the series of the week for them as well. Character of the week's a lot harder because everyone involved in One Piece is really, really good. So it's hard to really like pull anyone out and stand out. And I don't know. I'm trying to think through everybody I thought that had like a really cool week this week. I guess I'm going to give it to Rain from Mashle because I really do like the Bankai reveal, and I do like his line, like the setup of check, and then him just being like checkmate, and then he shoots at his Bankai attack. Basically, it's a very cool like back and forth moment. I'm not like super happy with that pick because I mean Rain only really does something cool towards the end of the chapter. I guess his speech earlier was okay. But I didn't really feel like, I know Chrome wins for the audience, and I totally get that. And I do like that Chrome had that cool moment, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like it was a big enough moment for me to give it to him.
I am going with the audience on this one.
Okay.
I thought it was it's nice to have the nods toward Chrome and his insight in the way that, demonstrates that, yeah, he's naive about a lot of established technology from the 21st century, but that kind of outsider's view leaves him open to noticing things that other people don't. And it felt like during the arc that involved trying to actually directly fight Stanley and Zeno's kingdom, that he didn't have really a great moment during that. So it was nice to have a moment that felt proper again for him after a good time. That said, that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week, everybody. We want to join you we want to thank you for joining us on this recording of the show. We record Weekly Manga Recap every Wednesday around 7 to 8 Eastern time in the evening here on twitch.tv/RoloT. You can also find recorded episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. And you can also check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/weeklymangarecap. If you become a patron, you can get access to all sorts of bonus content that we have up there. And your support allows us to create extra stuff, which is really nice. We also have a Discord server. You can take part in a lot of different conversations of all sorts of different ilks with the Weekly Manga Recap community. And you can also on there find the Google Doc that's maintained by Ninja X3i, which keeps track of all sorts of helpful information regarding the show, statistics, and recommendations and stuff. You can use that to suggest manga for us to read. Chris is mocking me right now with that briefcase, but that's fine. I'm not angry about it at all.
Can cash it in anytime I want. I just want that to be known.
I mean, I guess I'm safe literally right now.
Yeah,
but
just right now.
Yeah.
TikTok, Nick. TikTok.
I don't know what sea shanties have to do with this, Chris. So
the only thing keeping me alive right now.
No, it's okay. We also want to extend special thanks to Steve Mann, tarot card artist. You can check out his work wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn, and Milo Jack Stillitz and Leslie Delcher for creating the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap. And that'll be it.
maybe just I'm just gonna check, make sure. Yeah, it's still in there. All right, excellent. Vito's safely stored away for right now.
Okay.
Now, Nick, what's our next recommendation?
I didn't pick it out.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I just forgot to do it, or maybe I was, I don't know, licking my wounds after my loss.
I was gonna say maybe you were demoralized after losing the veto and the bank contest. I understand. Well, don't.
I did think about going back on our Pokemon journey, though.
Well, you let me know, okay? And when
will.
that happens, we'll let everyone else know. That's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. Goodbye.
Yes.